Want to hear from a veteran who has worked with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated persons for decades? Today we have Executive Director for Jamaica, Maria Carla Gullotta, who will share her experiences on working with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated persons here in Jamaica. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to Safer Tomorrow podcast, your resource for strategies for crime and violence reduction and making and creating more peaceful societies. I'm Dr. Joe. I'm a criminal justice researcher and community social work educator, and I'm really passionate about mobilizing and collating strategies for crime and violence reduction, particularly for my nation, Jamaica. Today we have Maria Carla Gullotta. She is the executive director of Stand Up for Jamaica. She is a human rights activist and she has done so much work in the area of rehabilitation and reintegration. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing and having just this discussion with her to find out more about what her organization has done regarding reintegration and rehabilitation and some of what she believes we need to do as a society and some of the lessons that we would learn from this society, the Jamaican society, could perhaps be applied regionally and internationally. So, welcome, Miss Galata.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to participate to this program, and I'm very glad for you are doing also a tremendous work. So I think we are on the same page, so we can talk about it tomorrow and today and forever. Because you see, what happened today should be the start of something which is developing in the future. So that's why I mentioned tomorrow and forever, because talking about things means also try to implement them.
Exactly. Exactly. And thank you. And that's what I really like about your approach. I mean, I often see you in the newspaper. You are always speaking. Whenever there is a situation, particularly regarding incarcerated persons, you are there, as well as Stand Up for Jamaica. So, can you tell us a
That's
little
why
bit
they call me the
about?
prison lady, right?
Yes. So if you could tell us just a little bit about your own journey, like you have an accent. So could you tell my listener, how did you get here? How did you start your organization? How did you become involved in this work?
Well, it's a long story. Originally, I'm Italian. I was born in Rome. Then I relocated in Jamaica 33 years ago. But I still have a kind of Italian accent. I will bring it to the grave, I think. It was a choice due to the fact that I was working at that time on two matters. One, human rights, because I was working for Amnesty International in Italy. And then in the same time, I was working with reggae production, which was selling festivals, shows, artists from Jamaica in Europe. So I was traveling up and down, and I had the feeling that reggae is not a stupid music, is a music which speaks not only to the body but also to the soul. And the message from reggae was a powerful one, is a powerful one. Therefore, when in my job as agency, which was selling Jamaican artists, I was asking reggae festivals to endorse Jamaica, not only buy, but give back, because they were making some serious money. There are some European festivals which gather 200,000 people. So my idea and my proposal to them is, okay, you have a business, but why don't you honor the message of reggae to give back something to Jamaica? That was also motivated by the fact that I was not very happy with Amnesty, because they were asking me to become the coordinator for Jamaica. I did it for a little while, and Amnesty is very powerful in advocating, but there is nothing on the grounds. So just to make an example, if I have a campaign against violence on women, then you have to have also instrument to help the women which are in need, not only campaign. So we were campaigning, women were coming to me, and I have to tell her to go somewhere else. So I thought that is not what I wanted to do. And I decided to create Stand Up for Jamaica, which was born initially as a sort of reggae commitment towards Jamaica. So festivals, artists, reggae show were giving donations. And then I totally relocated in Jamaica, and I decided to increase as much as I could the interventions, the activities, the projects from Stand Up. And therefore, I was in need of a different structures. So we got formalized as a charity. We have a board of directors, and we keep Europe in the back burner, hoping to receive funds, which honestly are less and less because my links with reggae ended where I realized that I could not do the two things at the same time. So I decided to choose the human rights and abandon reggae music. Stand Up is doing two things: advocacy, because we want to see and we need to see changes. So when we see something that we would love to see dealt with in a different way, we advocate. And we also are part of a network with other NGOs, such as Jamaican for Justice, Women Inc., Women Media Watch, CVC, name them. Because we know that being all together, we are more able to achieve results. So each one of us decided to choose some grounds to be more professional, right? Because we cannot deal with everything. We cannot deal with police brutality, children brutality, women brutality, mentally ill, incarcerated people, LGBTQ community doing a good job. So the idea was that each one of us was taking a sort of portfolio, and then we communicate, and then we decide all together about a couple of matters that are a priority for us, and there we lobby all together on that. So that was the beginning. And then Stand Up has been developing an amount of projects. Actually, we have several of them. The biggest one, the one which most of the people know, is at correctional services, which is a polite way to describe prisons. So we work in the prisons with the idea of rehabilitation. It has been a choice which has been difficult because it's one of the less popular matters among people. People think that if somebody has been in conflict with the law, as making something wrong, he should be punished, which is obvious. Yeah, he should be punished because he did something wrong. But there is punishment and punishment. So the punishment that you throw away the key and lock them up and forget about them is generating more violence. There is a target of more than 4,000 people among men, women, and a lot of juveniles. Remember, there are a lot of juveniles which are incarcerated. If you use the serving time to produce changes and to avoid to send back to society criminals, I think it's a very useful job. Those people, most of the people which are incarcerated are not serving life sentence. A wide majority is serving a few years. That means they go back to society, they go back to their community and families. So
And that
the idea which was motivating us was serving time as building time, right?
mm,
That is the famous rehabilitation. So into the various institutions, we have schools because most of them are totally illiterate. Then we have laboratories where they learn a professional skill and get a diploma. And then obviously we have other activities such as counseling, psychological support. That is due to the fact that there is quite an amount of people which have done something wrong because they totally lost control, or they were drunk, or they were red, or they were upset. But that is a damage to somebody else. You have to
yeah.
recognize that what you did was heavily wrong. So what we try to teach them is self-awareness, self-control, and try to avoid they do it again. It's working quite well, I would say.
So,
It
so
is a
just just
little bit.
just before you head into some of the successes and what your organization has been able to achieve, I want to just talk a little bit more about the experience for persons during incarceration. One of the things that I think is so important that you highlighted, and that I don't know if we remember all the time, is that we have quite a diverse population that goes into the correctional facilities. They don't all look the same. They don't all
No,
have the same experiences. They didn't commit the same crime. And, so everybody's on a spectrum. I guess I would first start with, what would you say are some of the challenges that men, women, and the juvenile, the young persons experience that are different from each other?
I'm happy for this question. Before I go there, I want to make a short list of the other activities that we have, and then we focus on the prison. So,
Sure.
beside the correctional services, we have a project on gender-based violence, which means violence on women and domestic abuse. It is dramatic. We have hundreds of cases. Then we have a project for children in the care of the state. And then we have a project on mental illness, which is developing, and I think is very important. And then we have a project on LGBTQ community, which are heavily discriminated due to the fact that it is illegal. Going back to the prisons now, instances, you are right, instances are different. You come in the right moment, because we had a discussion and a meeting a few days ago, because I have various team going into the prisons, right? And there was a, and I go every week because I want to remain on the grounds. I like it very much. um, we realized, for example, that in the last couple of years, the institution where there are the women has lower success at school, some lower success in some other activities. So
So,
we
sorry,
were
sorry,
wondering,
sorry. Could you repeat that? Women had lower successes at
yeah,
school? Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And we were wondering, because I don't want to say that women don't have the same talents as men, right?
Right.
So I decided to discuss with the two teams of psychologists which are going there, and with the staff which is working there, teachers and mediators, what it was. And I went, and I required a meeting with the ladies. And we, for example, realized that the level of stress that they have towards the destiny of their children is heavily interfering with their capability to focus.
Mm,
Basically, to say it in a very simple way, in that meeting, they were keeping saying, I don't know what happened to my child. Maybe it's with my grandmother, maybe is with the stepfather, maybe 1 month is with the aunt. I'm not sure if he's going to school regularly. I'm not sure if he has the money to buy books and school bag and etc. etc. So those form of worries have been somehow affecting a lot of women, which were admitting we cannot think about doing schoolwork when we keep wondering what happened to the children. And that is leading to the fact that they are able to meet with the children. It's called family day, a couple of times per year, which is horrible. If they could have regular possibility to see the children once every couple of months, they would be reassured about what happened to them, how they grow, and also remember that the children are innocent victims of a situation where one of the parent, father or mother, are incarcerated because they lose any contacts with them. So we have been asking over and over to increase the family days. Well, then when we were campaigning for that, COVID came. So there
Mm.
was no possibility for
Got worse.
1.5 years,
Oh my
they
gosh.
couldn't see each other. We were trying to set some Zoom meeting to see if they could do it, but it was technically a little difficult. And I think that DCS was not fully understanding the value and the importance not to lose family ties. So that is bringing us to some specific issue that we might have according to the people, man, women, and juvenile. For the men, I would say that one of them is the fear to go back home and not find the wife anymore, or that the children would be embarrassed to say around that their father is in prison, and so they try to avoid to talk to the father. And plus, when the father goes home, if the sentence is short, he can go back to rebuild a relationship. But when they are incarcerated for 10, 15 years, they might leave a little child which is 3 years old, and they come
Mm-hmm.
back home that the child is 18, and he didn't get any guidance from the father, and he does not recognize him as a father, but as an intruder in his life. So that is one of the major problems that they have. It is very sad, Joanna, because we have people which are fully rehabilitated, and that means that they have 6 subjects on CXC. They have a diploma with heart. We have a pilot project now which has been graduating at the University of the Caribbean, the first 6 people, and we have 11 more which are now following the classes. Those 6 got a master, a university master, and all of them got it with the highest marks, A plus, honor, etc. And our 6 were in a batch of 690 students. All the other ones were outside at home with their family, with their computers, with their support, etc. Our own had to study in an environment which is not very conducive, right? It's very difficult. And they did so well. So when those people are leaving, and there is quite an amount, their expectations are higher. If you enter as a bad man and you leave as a bad man, you do not expect anything at all, right? But if you went along a long path of education, efforts, commitment, sacrifices, some of them they were even financially contributing, trying to get the master, right? And nobody wants you, and every door slams on their face. What are they supposed to be doing? What are they, how they will survive, how they will pay the rent, how they will support their families? Somehow you push them back to commit another crime and become a reoffender. We have been working with some of them which were selected. For example, I remember a sad story, very sad. It was a lady. She came to prison completely illiterate, completely. She hardly could read. She achieved 5 subjects. She got a diploma in accounts. She got a diploma in craft. She was producing some beautiful jewels, etc. When she went out, she was struggling, struggling, struggling. She finally got a job in a call center. After some times, they were very happy with her because we tried to monitor their professional inclusion, right? Then there was COVID. So the call center laid out several persons, including her. A few weeks after, they called her back and they told her that she was so excellent that she would have been reinstated in a better position. So she was overexcited because she had a better job and her professional skill were highly appreciated. until one day the boss was asking for her police record. When she brought the police record, she was fired within 5 days.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean, it is very difficult to judge somebody if you do not allow those which are willing to go back to society as better person. You don't
yeah.
give them a second chance.
And she was
Well,
doing well in the in that job until her
she
police
was
record
doing
was
so well that
submitted.
she was reintegrated and promoted to a better position.
So the only difference, the only thing that made the difference is the knowledge. Nothing in her performance
No,
or her behavior
it
changed.
was the famous piece of paper, the police record, which has been somehow. She came to the office crying all her tears.
Mm. It's such an
Uh,
interesting.
I want to give an example. My office has employed most of them. Actually, my main office, 99% of the people working there as project manager, accountant, database are ex-inmates. I had a complaint with one and I had to dismiss him. But all the other ones are doing a very good job, very,
Mm.
and plus they know being coming from where they come from, they know the reality, so they can be very helpful and instrumental to create a better understanding. All my employees in there are ex inmates,
Mm.
and I don't have
Yeah,
any complaint
yeah.
because when I employ them, I tell them I'm happy to take you in, but remember that the fact that you are an ex incarcerated person does not allow you not to be a professional person.
Mm.
I will be patient, teach you, but I want a professional performance. They do it. They do
Miss
it.
Galata, this, I mean, there's so many things that you have said that I want to just highlight and underscore. Um, Starting with what you said last, first of all, you're practicing what you're preaching, so you are actually
Yeah,
employing a person. This is what you advocate for. This is what you were saying we must do, and you are doing it. But at the
Joanna
same
is
time,
you. I cannot preach and then I do something else and I don't follow what we are going to require to others, right?
yeah. But then you're also modeling what I think is also important. And that is when you hire them, it's not, oh, hired a formerly incarcerated person, and so they have a free reign to do whatever. It is you still
No.
hold them to a professional standard, and you are
Yeah.
saying, okay, I know that this is a transition for you based on where you are coming from. But I'm going to be patient with you. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to mentor you. And I think that's so important because one of the things we don't always remember is that there is this transition period when persons come out from prison that is a whole world unto itself. And perhaps a bit later, I'll ask you a little bit more about that. Transitioning into society. You spoke about family relationships. You spoke about just working in an employment, a job environment. All of these things can, um, you know, have their own challenges where transition is concerned. However, just the approach that you're taking in having a high expectation from them, but recognizing there is a journey towards that is so important. And another thing was when you were speaking
Yes,
about the
but Joanna, the
yeah,
office needed to function properly
yeah,
because what we do is not very easy. We have problems every God Almighty day working on human rights.
mm,
Every day there is an episode, every day there is an emergency, every day there is a drama, every day there is somebody which is in a desperate situation. My staff need to be up to standards to deal with all of that.
yeah,
I don't ask anybody to do more than what I do.
yeah, yeah. And another point that you mentioned that I think is also so important is because they're coming and because they've had some of these experiences before, they have embedded knowledge. They are, in a sense, experts in this area. So they're
Exactly.
bringing their own knowledge of their based on their experiences to the space, as well as the added education that they would have received while incarcerated and perhaps afterwards. So I mean,
We send some of them to a workshop, ex-inmates, which was arranged by Jamaicans for Justice on access to justice. They were amazing, you know. I went to listen to them for half a day because I was curious because all the other ones were upper class. And I sent these six and I said, Jesus, let's see what they do. Their intervention, their comments, they were so very much into it
yeah,
because they felt it on their own skin. That
yeah.
everybody was clapping them, and at the end, they gave them a standing ovation for the contribution. So, you know,
Yeah. And so this is so
but
important because when persons leave prison, they are leaders. They can be, leaders in society that help us, particularly in this area, other areas as well, but particularly in this area of working with incarcerated persons, working with formerly incarcerated persons to provide some of the services that we need. And if we see them as leaders in this area, just as in that workshop, it will increase our respect for them.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
that's it. But there is also a very important thing. Um, you know that all the agencies from the government do not allow to employ ex-inmates. There was a case of one ex-inmate which was working in a courthouse as, I don't know, he was an employee or something, until one judge one day recognized him as an ex-inmate because he was the judge which was conducting the trial, and he has been raised in a hell and pretend for him to be dismissed. So this is something which is also is a question I pose to you and whoever might listen to this program. We are talking about the need to do rehabilitation. Fine. But rehabilitation is linked to reintegration because if you don't reintegrate, why you should rehabilitate? But once they're rehabilitated, they want to be reintegrated. On one side, the Minister of Security has a strong policy to consider rehabilitation almost mandatory. But then the Minister of Security does not employ anybody. And it
mm,
makes making sure that no other agency, no other ministry is employing anybody. So why you preach about the importance of reintegration and then you don't offer a job? I'm looking also at the private sector. We had some interesting meetings with the private sector, which obviously discuss about the fact that crime is interfering with business, which is true.
mhm,
So I was listening for quite a long time, and then I was asking them, would you be able to give them a second chance? And they say, oh, why? I said, because it's the only way to prevent people to commit another crime. If you decided that you keep only complaining, I have a lot of sympathy with the difficulties that they might have, right? But if they do not jump in the arena and decide, okay, so let's see. So I was drafting a proposal for them, which was just take a few at the beginning, and we will somehow guarantee for them and put them in probation for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, you evaluate professional behavior and behavior, both. They're up to standards, they behave well, you give them a job. They're not up to standards, they don't behave the way they're supposed to behave, you just dismiss them. It is a way to give an opportunity, but also you are cautious not to go too far without solid foundations.
yeah.
They would say, "Oh, very interesting." Nothing happened. Only a Mr. Mitchell, you remember Howard Mitchell, which was the previous PSJ president, CEO. He took, I think, 8, 9, but then he dismissed himself and nothing happened.
Mm. I have a question for you, Ms. Gullotta, though. And you mentioned that you have a lot of sympathy for private sector. And I know, you know, um, I guess one of the concerns could perhaps be, how do I know? So I hear you, Miss Galata, but how do I know that when I am onboarding a formerly incarcerated person, that they won't commit fraud, that they won't come and kill me if I let them go, that they won't, create trouble with my staff. I think this is one of, as I talk to persons and I work it through in my own mind, how do we reconcile and answer these questions so that we do feel okay to hire persons who are formerly incarcerated?
That's what I was saying before. You take some precautions, you create a raw code. You pretend they stick with that code, and you are free to dismiss them in the probation time if they do not adhere to that code. It's
But
a
but
way.
before
I
that,
don't promise you a job. I give you a chance for XYZ months. Let me see what you can do. So you try not to risk too much, right? And you verify periodically. And plus, we were willing to take some responsibilities, selecting the best ones. For example, when we did the first badge with Mr. Mitchell, they had to come to my office and they had 4 workshops with us about how to behave, being on time, being polite, being professional, being serious, being not arrogant. We were really lecturing them to make sure that they were able to stick with what was required.
okay.
That was
But
a
even
way forward where you do not promise too much, you just try. But if they don't comply, you are free to tell them, "Excuse me, you are not exactly what you are supposed to be."
okay. But what about even before that? Are there some persons who you would say, okay, I would recommend these persons to be employed, or I wouldn't recommend these persons to be employed? Is there some kind of screening that you would have, or is it
Yeah,
just anybody,
most.
before they reach to,
Most.
okay.
That a little bit is the same, similar to the process why you grant parole to somebody,
Ah,
right?
okay.
You grant parole to somebody after an amount of interview, an amount of reports from the institution, an amount. For example, we send the reports to the parole board to say yes or no. Hmm? So there is a parachute to avoid to expose you too much. But also, on the other hand, there is the choice not to put them borderline because that's the best way to send them back to commit another crime.
Mhm.
It's hard to judge somebody when you don't give any opportunity. You can judge it when he got an opportunity and lose it
Yeah,
in that case.
yeah, yeah.
We had one male which was in prison for some times. He was very well literate. And along the serving time, he was teaching to other inmates. Right? He was a teacher. And he was very good. When he left, he got some assistance from us, and at that time from Nancy Anderson, which was at the law school. And Nancy took it in. He became an attorney. And the day when he graduated, he was inviting us. And he was speaking out. I was at the beginning I was disappointed because I thought that it was not wise for him to say where he was coming from. But
Mm,
he said, "I want to say where I'm coming from to show you that I did it. I hope that that will encourage you to understand that, yeah, I did something wrong, I pay for it, but now I want to let you know that I will give back. And as an attorney, every year I'm willing to follow 3 cases pro bono for Stand Up for Jamaica because I got and I want to give back. It was very emotional.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
It's not that all the time we are very successful, no. But
Yeah.
there is quite, look at the numbers. Numbers are important, right? According to DCS and JDF, out of 3 people leaving the institution, one is coming back in the
Mm.
general population. Among those on rehabilitation, it is one every 300.
Repeat that, please. Repeat that statistic.
I say, among the general population, out
Mhm.
of 3, one is coming back.
Okay.
These are the
Going back to
numbers.
prison.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are the numbers that we get from DCS reports. Among those which are part of the rehabilitation programs is one out of 200, 300.
Ah.
Is very seldom. I think that we work at correctional services since 2007.
Mhm.
Means quite a long time. I think that we have been seeing 12, 13 coming back, which means it works.
Wow. Well, and that's so important. So, in your programs, do you have a typical type of person that participates in your program, or again, is it just a diverse population that joins?
No, we don't have a type of person. And I don't even want to know too much what they did. If they want to tell me, fine. But it's not our job to judge them, or because some crimes are horrible, right? Somebody which is a pedophile, it might be difficult to digest it. So we do not ask too much.
Mhm.
What we ask and we want to see is changes, no matter what you did. But for certain programs, we privilege those which have short sentences.
Ah.
For example, we have a big project since 2 3 years, entrepreneurship. That was motivated by the fact that it's so difficult to be employed, right? So we have been trying to find an alternative, another avenue to teach them to develop a little business on their own. So
Mhm.
they don't have to go and ask. They
Right.
can be cosmetologists. We have a team which is doing landscaping in houses. So every day they have one house to attend. We have somebody which has opened a computer lab. That helps them to develop an activity on their own. So you have to teach them principle of business, accounts, all this kind of story, right? And entrepreneurship has been meaning a lot of changes because we had to change dramatically some of the programs, trying to deal with reality. And what we are doing now, we are trying to engage some foundations which have been offering to develop this. For example, we want to thank you, Lasco Foundation, which has been engaging some of them. They sell the Lasco products. In the same time, they do training on entrepreneurship. We want to say thank you to Sandals Foundation, which is doing something similar, helping us to develop the famous entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So it's a work in progress. And I think that if I can say something openly, judge not.
Mm.
That was Marley thing, right? Judge not before you prove them.
Yeah. Yeah. So in as we look at rehabilitation and reintegration, who would you believe is responsible or can even play a part in these processes? I mean, so often when we think about them, we think about the professionals, we think about you, we think about correctional officers, we think about psychiatrists or psychologists. But Does the wider society have a role to play in rehabilitation and in reintegration?
They should have a key role. They should have a vital role because without a partnership with civil society, we don't reach anywhere. I want to spend the 2 words also on how difficult is as a job to be a correctional officer.
Mm,
Correctional officer is working in one of the most difficult environment you can think about, a prison, right? Their salary is ridiculous. I was looking at some of the salaries last week. The basic one is 65,000 per month. Joanna, 65,000 per month. And in fact, some of the good ones, they try to leave. They try to find something else. And
yeah,
it's a pity because, for example, those are the best officers. If they were empowered, get a better salary, allowed to use their professional skill towards the inmates, would have been highly motivating.
yeah.
So they have a very, very, very hard task to deal with. And every minute I hear about corruption, corruption, corruption. Pay the people what they are supposed to be paid and
Can you?
allow them to have a decent life. Look at to teachers migrating. It's the same story, right?
Yeah.
So in an environment like the correctional services, there are two victims, the inmates, but sometimes also the correctional services
Mm,
officers. They don't have the prestige of a police officer. They don't. They don't have all the allowances that are offered to a police officer. You. So
can
civil
you?
society should play a role because or you want them back or you don't want them back, or you
Yeah.
jump on board, or please stop lamenting about violence and crime.
Okay. Stop lamentating. So what should I do instead? What should the wider society do instead?
Give them a chance, a second
Oh,
chance.
yes. Okay. Could you paint a little bit of a picture, a quick picture about the
I
experience
cannot
of a
hear you,
correctional?
Joanne, again. I
Can you
lost you.
can you yeah, sorry. Can you paint a bit of a picture about the experience of a correctional officer in a Jamaican correctional facility?
Well, I'm not a correctional officer, but I see them. The First of all, they transfer them up and down. So on rehabilitation, for example, we have some which are good and they have skills, so we try to include them. For example, in the University of the Caribbean scholarship, in each badge of inmates, we have one officer to give them an opportunity too, because we have 5 inmates and one officer, 5 inmates and one officer. But every minute it happens that I don't know who decided that today they drive the ambulance. So they want to be able to go classes. We have people which are assigned to the school and are teaching. One morning they learn they have to go to the kitchen and peel potatoes. So they cannot continue to work. I think it's very frustrating
Yeah.
for them. The fact that they are somehow moved without their consent, without being able to be more professional from one task to the other one.
Yeah.
I know also I've seen where they stay, I see where they sleep is not much better than the prisons cells. It is really basic. So they should receive some more attention for the kind of work that they do because it's very delicate. And you cannot pretend high performance with a very small salary and very small recognition of their dignity.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So just jumping a little bit, what are some of the characteristics you believe persons who members of the wider society who want to work, who want to support incarcerated and formerly incarcerated persons, what are some of the maybe knowledge, skills, abilities they would need to have in order to do this job effectively or to support them effectively?
But today there is a request for technology, and that's why we have been implemented together with heart quite an amount of training as database, computer technician, repair computers, graphics, which is on the market, right? And as I said, the other request is the entrepreneurship, which I think is one of the key ideas that we had, and it works. Um, about other jobs, I cannot tell you because you might need a good plumber. Same
No,
way.
no, I'm sorry I'm actually talking about not the incarcerated persons themselves, but the wider society. Who do we need to become, to be, in order to support persons well and
You
effectively?
don't need to do anything much. First of all, maybe you should show some availability to partner, for example, with us, to say what they can do. I am open to all form of partnership offers, and I'm not talking only about donors which give money, but donors which give time, expertise. We had somebody, for example, from the National Domino Society, something like that. I don't remember the name. This person was coming to the prison himself to teach them to play domino, to do domino tournament, and there were like 250 people engaged. When we had the final prizes, you should see how much the inmates were participating. And
Mm,
he was loved by everybody. Every time he was entering the prison, everybody was calling his name or waving at him. That is one. Another one, somebody which was doing sports. He was promoting some cricket activities. He brought some bats, some stuff, but for example, stand up bought the t-shirts, and there were tournaments, and there were teams of inmates, teams of officers. That is one of the many ways to contribute. I think that everybody can contribute according to what he or she is, and all of them are welcome.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So as we close, what do you believe are some of the things, the factors that contribute to persons changing their behavior, their lifestyle, leaving a life of crime?
As I said, opportunities. And in this case, I want to mention juveniles. Juveniles are the Joanna is the worst, right? You have children which are incarcerated when they are 14. And in Jamaica, until a few months ago, there were the famous uncontrollable children.
Right.
Uncontrollable children are children which are unruly, right? Most of the times, the reason why they are unruly is because of a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They have been molested, they have been raped, they have been beaten up, they have been totally neglected. So they start to behave in a rude way as a reaction. You are being molested, you go to your mother, and your mother tell you, shut up, because the man is the breadwinner. So the child, which is a victim, become the element of disturbance in the family. So they don't go to school, they come late at night, they smoke ganja, they drink Guinness, etc. And the parent goes to the police station stating, I cannot manage the child. The
Mm-hmm.
child ends in a courthouse and ends in a prison, 14 years old. So if there is what is, as you say, a call for the major challenges, I think that we should all together review that chapter and try to find avenues which are not detention. With
Mm-hmm.
those juveniles which are incarcerated, there are three elements which are dramatic. One, their loneliness. They don't lose the family, the environment, the community, the school, so they're totally lost in space. Two, the fact that their process of growing is not happening. They don't go to a shop, they don't go to the post office, they don't wash the dishes, they do not know the value of doing XYZ. So they are completely handicapped.
Yeah.
Third, they are in one sex institution at an age where the sexual activities are blooming.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go there too much, but I want to express the fact that it's very alarming. Once they leave the institution and they are 18, their failure, it is one of my major failures. I'm not able to say that we had big success with most of them.
Mm.
One, they are terribly traumatized, so they're not normal. Two, they are scattered all over the island. So how do you find somebody which end up in St. Elizabeth?
Yeah.
We lose contacts. Three, they're not able to be adults and balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is, I mean, and you mentioned it earlier that, as you said, the juvenile situation is even more dire than we perhaps really recognize.
Yeah.
Um, and what I really am hearing coming out more and the most is just how the main challenges that persons, whether you're male, female, or a young person, are having are social issues, loneliness, unable to, maintain ties with children, unable to, gain employment on it, so, and what that means is that, and I think what I would like to underscore and bring out is that us, the wider society, really do have a role to play. We don't have to be parents to help with loneliness. We don't have to, we can be persons that help to facilitate ties being strengthened while persons are incarcerated. And so I just want to go back to the question though, in terms of what do you believe help people to be rehabilitated then? So is it by providing company for young people? Is it, or for the women, is it just so that they'll have increased ties to their children and then they'll be able to go through the educational program? What have you seen?
As I said, according to the context, the needs might be different, right?
Okay.
Male has a different context from women, and children has a very peculiar context. But I think
Right.
that the all of them, if you summarize a little, is the fact that they feel that there might be another opportunity for them on one side. That is common, right? And secondly, I go back to the word loneliness. Men feel lonely, women feel lonely, children feel dramatically lonely. So don't cut the ties
Yeah.
with the families, because that is a vital hope to keep them on track. Third, when it is possible, try to think about some form of diversion. You don't need to lock up somebody which has been thieving 3 dashin because he has no money to pay the bail.
Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of the juveniles, some alternative option as children home, halfway houses, and also the last element is why don't you help the families?
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to allow to stay home instead of ending up in a juvenile institution.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you so much, Miss Gullotta, for sharing your experiences. Truly, you have done so much work in this area, and I want to say
Joanna,
congratulations.
let me say that I didn't do enough work. I spend 80% of the time to find funds. I spend 80% of the time to get more possibilities. And sometimes I feel it's not enough, it's not enough. But we try every day.
And you are one person with a small army, and you have done a lot because there are hundreds of people who have gone through your educational programs and you have had many successes. And if it were not for you, we probably would not know a lot about the plight of incarcerated people in this nation. And so, even if that is the main thing that you have done a lot. And so, I want to say thank you for the work that you have done. For coming from Italy, you're home to come to Jamaica. You didn't have to come.
No, I'm
And
Jamaican. Remember that I'm Jamaican now. I got
I'm
my
sorry.
citizenship 17
Yeah,
years ago. So, ha, be
but
careful.
before, no, well, before, I mean, before, but no,
Right.
this was of choice, so you are a citizen of choice, and we are grateful. And I just want to give you an opportunity to say one thing, if there's one thing you want the listener to remember, could you share that with my listeners?
One thing to remember is remember that everybody is a human being. Remember that most of us can make a mistake. And remember that a little mercy helps in life.
Mm, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, listeners, for joining with us, my fellow peace seekers and change makers, for joining with us today on Safer Tomorrow. Today we had Maria Carla Gullotta. She's the executive director of Stand Up for Jamaica, and she has done so much work serving the population of persons who live within our correctional facilities and who transition out and are to be reintegrated into society. I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Safer Tomorrow Podcast, and to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Safer Tomorrow Pod. Thank you so much and have a good evening. Bye.